You're a huge reader. Where did this love of books get started?
I run quite a bit, and I don't even run because I enjoy it that much. I mean, I enjoy it, but it's nothing kind of in the immediate moment. It's not like it's euphoric or anything close to it. I mean, it's pretty painful. And there's the Greg LeMond quote about how, I mean, it's very dispiriting when you think about it. And it is very deeply true that how it never gets easier. You just go faster. That's true of running. Like if I stay running for the rest of my life, it will never get easier. I will just go faster. But just it feels like something I ought to do. I vastly rather having run than not having run, and so I sort of continue to do it. And with reading, basically, I don't feel like I'm weird. I feel like everyone else is weird, in that there's just like so much stuff to know, and I guess I just feel stressed out by like it feels important or it's obviously important, and I don't know it. And so, like I better get to work. But it's not, when I'm reading, I'm not in this like especially blissful place. I mean, I enjoy it perfectly fine, but it's more like I think there are extremely important things that I really should know, and I don't, and that feels problematic.
How do you filter what you read? There's millions of books. There's one of you.
Right. Well, I discard a lot of books. I like the insight that there's a set of great books that are really worth reading, right? And there's a subset of those books that are really enjoyable to read. Maybe it's like 10 or 20% of them, say. And the subset, the intersection of really worth reading and really enjoyable to read, is actually still more books that you can read than you can read in a lifetime. And so I've sort of decided, well, I will read all of the books that are really worth reading and really enjoyable to read. And then when I run out of those, then I'll go back to the books that are merely worth reading, right? And so, fairly quickly you can decide if this is an enjoyable book to read or not, and not discard it. And I think reading is like should be treated as a kind of more active process. Sort of, you should skim, you should skip, you should backtrack, you should discard and then potentially return. Like you are not subject to the book. You're not a passive consumer. Like the book is there for you. You bought it. It's yours. And like jump back and forward, tear it in half if you want, annotate it wildly. Like use it.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And yeah, I maybe start half the books I get, and I probably finish a third of the books I start. And that works out to, finishing 1 to 2 books a week. But if I finish it, that, it's probably been recommended by somebody in the first place. And then it looked interesting enough upon some very superficial skimming to start. And then, if I finish it meant that it was quite interesting. So it's actually like a lot of selection that kind of happens along the way. And then I think just the other thing worth pointing out is, there's the line from Basho about the Japanese poet, that you shouldn't follow the people you most admire, but you should follow what they admired. And I try to do that. I try to figure out, for the people who seem to be doing really great work or to have really interesting ideas, or just who I admire in whatever regard, to figure out how do they get to who and what they are, what influenced them, or what's upstream, and often it's quite obscure, but I try to kind of disentangle that.
When do you typically read?
Always. In the morning, in the evening, while walking. While walking is a good one, actually. Like your peripheral vision is such that you can actually quite functionally read a book while walking. And there's other people that strive to do this and do it much more and faster than I do. But you spend a lot of your time walking, and so being able to do that, I found to be quite valuable. Often while eating.
So you're sitting at home on your couch.
Yep.
It's after dinner, and you pick up a book for the first time. Walk me through how you process that book, what you look at.
Yeah, normally I'll jump sort of midway through it and just start reading and see, like, would I like to have ended up here? And almost certainly, like, a bunch of the terms I won't recognize, or the antecedent ideas I won't be familiar with, or whatever. But, like, do I want to be here, or had to have gotten here? And if after a couple of pages, it seems like the answer is yes, then I might sort of backtrack to the start and start kind of pursuing it a bit more seriously. I mean, John has this insight that, and it's kind of related to the previous point, that at every moment you should be reading the best book you know of in the world. I mean, I don't mean kind of the absolute best for everyone, but sort of the best book for you. But, like, as soon as you discover something that that seems more interesting or more important or whatever, you should absolutely discard your current book sort of in favor of that. Because any other algorithm necessarily results in you reading kind of quote unquote worse stuff over time.
Suboptimal.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'll be reading the book on the couch, and then, maybe after 50 pages, I don't know, be in my room and I'll stumble across something else. And I might just, switch rails. The other thing that I think is actually quite valuable is just leaving books out. And so when somebody recommends a book, I'll very often pick up a copy, ideally a used hardback copy, because the hardback books, they're more durable. And now with Amazon, used hardbacks are really cheap. And I'll leave it out. And so there's books in the kitchen, there's books in my bedroom, and there's books on my bed, and just strewn everywhere. And surprisingly commonly, either someone else will recommend the book or some aspect of the book, whatever, and it's still salient, it's still around you, and you're like, oh yeah, I really should check out that thing, or something else triggers its relevance. You read an article, you just start appreciating a point or a question or something, right? And so I like, part of the reason that I still really value physical books is because for now at least, we still exist in physical space, and it creates a kind of idea space for you that makes kind of productive collisions more likely to happen.
What types of things do you typically mark up in a book, and what does that look like?
So I tend to just make notes in the margin. I tend to underline stuff, but in the margin, and I underline it. Misusing the term, I annotate it, mark it, highlight it in the margin, because then you can flip through the book, just like quickly see the parts you marked, right? And then the other thing is on the last pages, like kind of in the inside cover at the end, I tend to very quickly note page numbers for particularly interesting points or things that jumped out or whatever, so that I can easily go back to a book and I have the list of the 30 things that I found most interesting.
So you keep the book, a book that you completely read, that you like.
Yep.
How often do you come back to that book?
If I want to make a particular point or be reminded of a particular aspect or, whatever, maybe I will. But generally speaking, I don't. And I think, part of the value of making the annotations is, of course, to imprint them more firmly in your mind, so that you sort of don't need to come back as much, in some sense. If it's really good, I don't often do this, but if it's really good, I might write a review for friends and just share an email or a Google Doc or something, or just share snippets with friends. And that's valuable both because, again, sort of the act of summary or summarization sort of aids a kind of synthesis and better recollection. But also, of course, it triggers outpointers and further suggestions from those friends. And so, if you want to identify candidates in adjacent, or if you want to perform the clustering and figure out what sort of adjacent candidates might be, interesting for further exploration, writing a review is, a good place to start.